Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. This video is for my cronies. Recently, I posted a video talking about my Canoptic Harvest, a list that I'm going to be trying to bring competitively to GTs and other tournaments going into Arc of Omens in this new Warhammer 40K ITC season. And in that list building, there was some comments about the fact that I was proposing Purge the Vermin as a secondary to build my list around. Some people had recommended that I should probably look at Engage on all fronts. And while I tried to defend my point into the comment section about why I wanted to run Purge the Vermin, it didn't stop me from thinking about Engage on all fronts and look at what could be done with the Necron army. And after spending a lot of time pondering it and thinking, well, it did lead to a small change in my Canoptic list, which I think will be for the better, but more on that later. Aside from it, though, I still believe strongly around Purge the Vermin and have a couple ideas why. But with that being said, I want to make sure that I understand Engage on all fronts and what you guys see for the army, because maybe there's a different dimension or a different angle that I'm not looking at. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications. Like, share, subscribe, and comment down in the bottom because, one, it helps the algorithm. And two, I love to continue these conversations and learn more. It's the comment section right here that I feel has opened up my mind. And to all those who have left comments suggesting Engage, thank you very much. You really have opened up my mind to a different avenue with my Canoptic list that I wasn't even looking at. And if it wasn't for you guys, I probably would still be running on the same version now. And I really like the direction I'm taking it. So with that being said, let's jump over into what is Purge the Vermin and Engage on all fronts. Well, when you're building a list, it's very important to keep secondaries in mind. You want your army to be able to perform the secondaries. You don't want to take raised banners and not have any infantry. Or in this scenario, take Engage on all fronts without having units that can get into multiple table quarters across the game. So when we look at our list and we start building those, two secondaries that you could potentially build your list around are both in the same category, and that is Purge the Vermin and Engage on all fronts. For Necrons, Purge the Vermin is a secondary that says at the end of every battle round, excluding the first, you score 1 point for each table quarter that no unit is within, not wholly within, just within. You also score an additional point if there is no unit within your deployment zone. Engage on all fronts reads that you score 2 points if you have 1 unit in each table quarter and no more than 3 inches from another table quarter. So if you were to make a plus sign down the middle of your field, as I've constructed here, and then measure 3 inches off each side for a 6-inch thick plus sign, your unit cannot be over that in order to score Engage on all fronts. If you have 3 quarters that you satisfy this condition in, you score 2 points. And if you can do it in all 4 table quarters, you will score 3 points. So let's start off with that and start off with the basic math on these two secondaries. So if you score a marginal, if you have 3 table quarters, and if you're able to just hold the center field and back, that is the focus I want to look at right now. The ones that make it the easiest on us to score those points. So let's start off with Engage on all fronts. What I've done here is I've measured out the center, and I've also done this as a conversion, I believe, or Death and Zeal, where you have a table quarter and you're 9 inches out of center. For this example, I have a squad of Tomb Blades and I have a squad of Scarabs. I'm going to be using each individual model as a representation of a unit in this example. So for starters, let's start with what do we do to get these units into each of the table quarters, okay? So these guys, the Tomb Blades, have a 14-inch move. A 14-inch move can basically put them anywhere you want, on top of the fact of things that give them +1 to their move, as well as having an advance roll. Just the 14 inches alone is putting you at a position of right here. Now, that's not quite far enough. From the 9-inch corner on a straight line, that's not quite far enough to get in there. However, if we come over here and go 14 inches this way, we do have a nice little spot where now we're getting a little bit closer to getting into there. With an advanced roll, we could probably make it through and get into the other side very easily. So I can say that it is safe that with a squad of Tomb Blades and an advanced roll, you can get over into this far table quarter, which is probably your opponent's, on turn one to be able to score 3 points. The other two are relatively simple. Even being 3 inches from here with the Scarabs, they have a 10-inch move. So you're able to clear and get in here very, very, very easily. Move this out of the way. Get in there very easily into this table quarter. So I can see you being able to get a easy 3 on Purge the Vermin on turn 1. Those units then get eliminated. There's nothing really to protect them. The Tomb Blades are cheap, so it's an easy resource to lose and not really feel the blow of it, especially when you're scoring secondaries and scoring points off it that are going to matter at the end of the game. However, with using resources like that and having resources that move out there quickly, it does put you in a position where what happens when those resources run out, how many points do you need to put into these resources, and what happens if you run out of those spots, the force organization spot. So the Tomb Blades take up the fast, which they also share with Wraiths and Scarabs. So 3 squads of Tomb Blades and 3 3-man squads of Scarabs, and that's all the fast you get. No Ophidians, no Wraiths. That's something to think about if you want to run Ophidians or Wraiths. On top of that, once they do what they do, they're basically done. They're going to move into those spots, and that's going to be the end of it. To their nature, they're very, very good at it. So let's assume that on turn 1, we score the 3 points. Our opponent has a lot easier time being able to zone us out for multiple turns from that objective. So let's assume that this is just that one unit. We still have 2 more back here that are able to shoot across the field later into the game. So this unit goes in on turn 1 and dies. Now we're at a point where we're at a risk. And then we'll go with this. This Scarab unit is going to go over here into this territory to score points here. So we have 1 Scarab unit and 2 Tomb Blade units left for the game. The next turn of the game, we're able to go in, or maybe later, or maybe turn 3, whatever it may be, we can send another squad of Tomb Blades over to be able to score it. Now, these other 2, we're not as concerned about because we are close enough that we can play aggressively. We can go into those points. There are objective markers over there that we're going to be seeking for Treasure of Aeons. So there's a lot to be said about the angle and the direction that you can play this game in order to do it. All you need is that 1 throwaway unit, per se, to be able to rush up there. In this case, it's now 2. The issue I see, and we're going to get into, is that last squad of Tomb Blades going to be able to hit that 3rd time? Or is their job going to be needed elsewhere? Because as we've now taken, all of our fast resources are out covering these spots. Scorpex you're going to want on defense to start protecting your angles. You do have access to Veil of Darkness. Necron Warriors and other units do not move that quickly. So what do? Well, we have those 2 turns, and now we've just gotten 6 off Purge the Vermin. But now we're in a risk of losing some of these units, okay? As well as not being able to commit the last Tomb Blades. So if we have 2 turns that we score 3, and we finish out the last 3 turns of the game only scoring 2 by getting 3 of the table quarters with some of these theories in place, we're looking at about, what is that? 2, 4, 6, 6, and 6. We're looking at 12 points there. 12 points unengaged on all fronts. And realistically, we're losing 3 squads of Tomb Blades because the Scarabs are moving towards objectives. The Scarabs are moving with the rest of our army, in a sense. So that's not too bad to look at that and think, okay, I can get 12 unengaged on all fronts. However, with that, I feel it's spreading out our force too thin. I don't think that the Necrons, we have enough strength in our army to be able to spread out like that and cover that much field and sustain it late into the game. I could be wrong. And I think that there might be a key element to this combination that I'm looking at that I could be missing. With that being said, the reason I'm missing that is that may not be part of my personal play style and how I like to play the Necrons or visualize them. So let's move over to Purge the Vermin and what I'm looking at with Purge and why I think that Purge is still viable with the secondaries and in this competitive meta. So for Purge the Vermin, I like to try to move into a hammer and anvil style. And one thing that was mentioned to me is that Purge the Vermin is very, very easy to shut off, as you can move to the center, control the center, and tag 2 places from one spot. I can see this. I understand where you guys are coming from. And this is something that I have thought about with this. My answer to that is Treasure of Aeons. With Treasure of Aeons, our opponent's going to select 3 objective markers outside. Traditionally, these objective markers are going to be the ones right down the middle. So we want to hold 2 of them pretty much the entire game so we can get our 15 points, which means that one of those objectives is going to be the center. So if our opponent is putting units towards the center, and Terminators are ones to think about, especially with Dark Angels, how do we stop this from occurring? Well, there's a couple things I think about. One, if Dark Angel Terminators have made it to center and are starting to push on me and I cannot pick them up, I'm going to lose the game on primaries. So I need to be able to push that unit out of center. I need to push that unit off the objective, and I cannot let them stay there. So any unit that is going to set up camp on the center objective has to be answered to. And with that being said, how I like to play Necrons is very counteractive instead of giving my opponent a chance to play and do everything else. I like to counter their plays. One unit that I like to use in this sense is Scorpex. My Canoptic list, I'm looking more into Wraiths for this, but Scorpex work well for this, and I know they tend to be a crowd favorite. So with Scorpec Destroyers have an 8-inch move. They are also infantry, which is critical. In this scenario, yes, we have the table quarters still set up as normal, and I still have this line down middle. Brought the Grey Knight Terminators over to put them in a position to show like they're covering and they're in each one of these. We'll go even closer because I know what someone's going to say. They just have to be barely, like literally one model could stand right at the center of the field and it literally be an objective marker, basically. And as long as they're touching that point, then they're there. So with the Terminators in the middle, how do we answer them? What do we do? How do we do this? Well, with the style play I like to do, I take everything from my deployment zone and I start curving this way to create a wheel and turn the game into what some people may know as hammer and anvil. With that, I'm able to put the Scorpex, the infantry, into buildings getting ready to pounce on the middle. Now typically, and this was something that was commented on as well, terrain plays into this as well. I play in the Great Lakes Tournament Circuit, which is run by Death or Glory. In this, a lot of the terrain is pre-placed. So right here, there would be, as you've seen, if some of my battle reports have shown, there are 2 pieces here that are obscuring and breachable. This means that I can get units up behind them, set the Scorpex. So in this scenario, with this mapping, there would most likely be a piece of terrain right here that would be covering that area so that the Scorpex, during the time needed, could move up here and be standing back here ready to pounce on that unit that just moved to center. And with the distance that they're away, it wouldn't take very much for them to make that charge. And anyone who's played Scorpex know they hit hard. They hit really, really hard. With that being said, I still like to use the more sacrificial unit style to take center with the Scarabs, etc., etc. But instead of running 1 3-man of Scarabs, I prefer the 9-man, the big boy. So I can bring the Scarabs in, tag just a small portion of that objective. Now, not having objective secured makes it easier for my opponent to simply tag it with an objective secured unit and take it away, but I'm still able to tag it on that first game turn very easily, or just tag it from the side and have the objective to be able to start ancient machineries there, or hold it for Treasure of Aeons, while a unit like Scorpex can attempt to remove this unit that's got to center. My entire army is focused on making sure that I have enough tools to hit that center objective and prevent anyone from doing this, from sitting on the middle objective and stopping Purge the Vermin, stopping Treasure of Aeons, and more or less running away with the game by getting a 12 on primary going into their next turn. Now, a lot of you would say, okay, but what if we get to the outsides? And I see what your point is. So if this is the deployment zones right here, and these three objectives are Treasure of Aeons, then why not go after this one out here and hold these two for my 3 and give up the center? There's a couple reasons. One, usually from here, this objective in my deployment zone from here is the furthest point between two objectives, which means there's a lot of opening firing ground for my guys to get shot and just get jumped and lose them. While moving over to this one is the shortest point. I can take this very easily. So that's one objective, and I don't think anyone would argue that. This is now the next closest, being only 9 inches away from my deployment zone, or if we go halfway to the corner and have an angle in the corner, this is still the next closest and most well defended based on DOG's setup for their terrain and the way it's deployed. So this is an objective marker I'm very, very easily able to hit at any point in time in that same fashion I'm talking about with this firing lane to make sure I'm attacking on my terms, only dedicating what I need to remove what they have. Now, let's go over the points on this and how this breaks down. Since I can't score this on 1 for Purge the Vermin, I can only score it for 4 turns. If those 4 turns all are 3 points, we're back to a tie with Engage on all front at 12 points. Now, I think one of the issues, to go into the debate on why we're looking at Engage over Purge, is there's twofold on this. Number one, ancient machineries. Ancient machinery scores really, really, really well, but it requires that you're going to do an action on objectives outside of your deployment zone. So these 3. That's going to make you want to move units like these Tomb Blades or objective secured units that a lot of people are using out of Nick Hollock to tag these objectives and immediately complete ancient machineries. And while I like that, and I can understand that, I don't feel like that fits my personal play style and how I play the Crons. Give me just a moment. Let's move back the camera and discuss why those numbers, to me, don't seem as horrible where it's not safe to build around Purge the Vermin. So as the numbers break down, Purge the Vermin can score for 12 points. Engage on all fronts can score for 12 points. If you have 3 squads of Tomb Blades, theoretically, you can score Purge the Vermin for 13 points by hitting it for 3 turns for 3 points instead of just 2, as I'm recommending or suggesting. I think that we are still kind of in a point where Tomb Blades can fit that role. They have it, and there's armies, even with Marines, there's still pockets, there's still ways that getting that 13 doesn't sound that bad. Where Purge the Vermin might require you beating your opponent up. And that's the kicker. With Novak Dynasty and the damage output that I'm trying to push, I am trying to beat my opponent up. I am trying to beat up their half of the field and possibly push for more points. But at that same time, too, I like the 12 on secondary that I don't have to over-dedicate outside of my territory, my table half. I can turn the game sideways, play off the terrain, play off the corner, play off the feature, and make my opponent have to dedicate to start turning off my points. Turning off when I go, okay, I'm scoring 3 on Treasure of Aeons, I'm going to score 3 on Purge the Vermin, and I complete Ancient Machinery, and I score 4 on that. Make my opponent think, well, I think I need to push back a little bit. That's basically where I see it as far as Engage and Purge go. I can see where people are apprehensive, because if this situation occurs where a unit jumps into the middle and you can't remove it, that's probably the game. At the same time, how many times does a game go to the person who's able to get a 12 on primary on turn 2 or 3? There's a lot of times. There is some mathematical argument to be stated for the fact of going second and scoring 12 at the last game round. But if that being said, if that same person who goes second scores 12 2 times in a game, that's very difficult to come back from. And having a 12 on primary can tend to be a huge lead and a huge push. Usually, if you have that 12, your opponent probably only scored an 8. So not only are they increasing by 4 points, but they took 4 points away that you could have scored during the game, and you do not get that state in time to then score it later on because you now progress the turn counter. I feel like if they are able to pull this off, there might be other problems. There might be other issues, and this may not be a game that's going to go in your favor that day. So that is kind of where I come across with the list tech. I am curious. Please comment below. I'm very curious on if my read on engage is correct. Maybe there's something I'm missing there. That's my initial thought with it. And on top of it, maybe I've got a couple people I've turned over and go, okay, I can see you can play Purge if that's your style. And you can see where I'm coming from to still believe that Purge is something you can build into. And maybe that's just the units that I'm trying, or my personal style of the game. But I'm definitely curious in the comment section to hear your guys' thoughts, especially people that were that had their opinion about my initial video with Purge the Vermin versus taking engage on all fronts. So, I appreciate you guys putting that out there and commenting on it, because there is a lot of avenues and venues that I haven't seen, didn't think about. Recently, someone posted up about psychic channeling, and I completely forgot the fact that for one command point, my Grey Knight Psyker gets to roll 3d6 and pick the highest for all of his psychic powers. So that was an oops there. But, that's what I love about this game and love about this community. Please leave your guys' comments down below, subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you all again soon.